I get to introduce Elias, which I'm really excited about, introducing you and the online audience to him. In our team, we have for a long time been quite fascinated with his approach because he has this way of working with type as a generative tool. And we think there's a lot to learn from this open-endedness and moving away from fixed result, and in that way inviting more play into the process. And Elias is currently based in Berlin, where he co-runs Hanzer Liccini. I messed it up anyways. It's a studio for graphic design and typography, who he runs with Lucas Liccini, who is also here in the audience. Elias's most recent typeface release is a font published by Dynamo Typefaces. It's called ABC Arizona, and it's the first ever sans-to-serif superfamily. And it packages all the styles of the entire typeface into one variable font file. So if you ever wondered if there's a thing between a sans and a serif, then Elias has the answer. And actually, we're also using another one of Elias's typefaces, Edition. It's all over the backs of our t-shirts. And it's it's a family of 5 different monoline styles that are each referring to a historical type classification. And you'll also hear more about it in a moment. Just like yesterday, there will be time for questions after the talk. So yeah, keep that in mind. And I think that's it. Please come to the stage, Elias.
Do I have to change that?
Oh.
Perfect. Okay, thanks for coming. I'm really happy to be here at Post Design Festival. Thank you for inviting me. It's been a pleasure so far, and everyone being super friendly here. And yeah, I'm gonna just start right into it. And my talk is called The Head of an Ox, which is a mystery title. I'm Elias Hanzer. I'm a Berlin-based graphic designer and type designer. And yeah, I'm really happy that the whole talking and lecture series is now going on again after Corona, and especially like after a long time not going on so much with that kind of work. It was a special pleasure to work on a talk about my own work, because talking about your own work is finally helping you to reflect on the work you do and like bringing it all together, which can help you a lot. And so, yeah, I was wondering, like, how can I structure my work and bring it in the context of the whole overall topic practice? And so I was thinking about like just presenting my own personal practice and how they all are tangled up with each other in a way. Sorry, I need to drink some water. So first I will talk briefly about my work with Dynamo Typefaces, who I'm known for quite some years now, and we were on and off working together on several projects, and just recently released ABC Arizona as my own big published typeface. Then I will also talk about personal projects in a way that are like free and uncommissioned, that are more like always research-based. And then I will also talk about my own design studio practice together with Lucas, Hanzer Liccini. And yeah, in the beginning of my, let's call it career, I was working a lot together with Dynamo, learning from them, and also had my own design practice on the side and was freelancing and all of that kind of stuff, and also did some uncommissioned work on the side. But through the time, these things are shifting in a way, and now I'm less and less involved in Dynamo anymore, still really like hanging out with them, but trying to focus more and more on my own studio practice. And this is also because Lucas and I, we put our uncommissioned works now inside the studio practice, trying to like really make it one thing. But yeah, I'm gonna first talk about my relationship with Dynamo Typefaces, which is a Swiss type foundry. I think a lot of people of you know. They actually had also a talk on Post Design Festival 3 years ago in Copenhagen. And yeah, they've always been a huge support in what I do. And after I did an internship with them, and then we worked on and off on bespoke and retail typefaces after that. We decided to team up again and work on a typeface based on some sketches that I did back in 2018. And yeah, and funnily enough, this was also the time when Varial fonts were introduced to the web, and suddenly there were like this new technology player on the table, and this was a really interesting time for type designers at this time, because no one knew, okay, is this gonna like pass on in a couple of years? Is anyone talk about it anymore? And I'm sure a lot of you have already heard of that, of Varial fonts. And yeah, I do not want to go a lot into detail what a variable font is, but basically a variable font is a real-time interpolation between two extreme points. So two extremes. So you can like have a thin typeface and a bold typeface, and the computer will calculate all the in-betweens, and the variable font is like calculating it in real time. So you can like show off your design like in a way you never did before. So it was like kind of a flexing tool in the beginning. And yeah, it made a lot of impressions, I think, to a lot of people. And yeah, as I said, you can like do the thin to bold one. You can do like compressed to extended, or upright to italic. And in its core, this was already possible long before variable fonts. But the way that this kind of like was able to do in real time, it made the way we think about fonts, the way we show it, the way we kind of draw fonts and to think fonts as a typeface developer, it changed everything up a bit. And these axes are the normal ones. So, but what's next? Like after technology is introduced, you will do like what it's supposed to do. I mean, what the variable font is supposed to do is like reduce the file size, make everything more compact, and that's it. But you know, this technology brought up, and this change of thinking about what the typeface can do was an unknown playground for type designers at this time. And yeah, we were thinking at this time, okay, that's the time to do something. So we introduced this scandalous new axis called the sans-to-serif axis, which in a way was explored before by several type designers, but not in this way, not like in real time. So yeah, this is how Arizona Typeface came about. From 2018 to 2021, when it was released, 3 years in the making, Arizona, the sans-to-serif typeface was created. It is a typeface that spans over different genres, weights, and also includes an italic, all in one font file. It is a sans-to-serif typeface, and so it's bending these century-old genres into each other, and through that process, creating something new in itself, in a way. I will just explain a little bit more in detail and also talk a little bit about the construction of Arizona typeface. On the one hand, as I showed before, there are always two extremes that a variable font can operate with. There you have like the ABC Arizona Serif, which is a high contrast typeface. It's pointy, it has like this modern Renaissance look to it. It's very straight, sharp, almost geometrical, but still not. And then on the other hand, you have ABC Arizona Sans, which is this humanistic, kind of like still sharp, but also kind of like having this universal look to it typeface. And yeah, and these typefaces were like pushing into each other and then bringing something of a breath of fresh air into an old idea, basically, of combining different genres with each other. And I will talk a little bit about the construction of a typeface like this, because in type design, interpolation is crucial, that both forms you're interpolating with have the same amount of points. And so the question was really like, a serif typeface has a lot more detail into it, into its forms than a sans-serif has. So we had to hide these points in the sans-serif, and then they were growing out of the form itself. So before creating Arizona, we need to like create some blueprints for ourselves to actually do it on a technical level. And then also what variable fonts changed is like the transition of these two extremes are almost as important as the extremes. So what a variable font designer, I would call it, has to have in mind that the user could like stop this video at any time and the result needs to look good as well. So you cannot just like rely on a static version of a font. And also a lot of design decisions were heavily influenced or directed by this kind of like transformation itself. Additionally to the serif axis, the font also includes a weight axis that spans from thin to bold. And this includes the static font files of thin, light, regular, medium, and italic. And bold, of course. And then you have also an italic axis, where like some strange things in ABC Arizona are happening, like, for example, the verticals of the F are not like doing the angular thing and creating some weirder rhythm into this italic version of Arizona. And then one thing that is also inevitable result by designing in extremes is that you are ending up with in-betweens. Like what I said just before is the thin and the bold one as extremes, but you have like the light, regular, medium in between. So if you put this thought into the serif axis, you would end up with different serif styles. And so we kind of like thought, okay, it would be nice to have 5 styles of serif, like ways of serif, like small serifs to bigger serifs. So we developed these 5 subfamilies to ABC Arizona, which is ABC Arizona Sans on the one side, then Flare going next, then Mix, Text, and Serif. I will talk about these individual styles in a moment. So we start on the serif axis on 0, where there are no serifs, which is Arizona Sans. And yeah, we talked about this one before. It's this humanistic sans-serif typeface with sharp features. And then we're going up the serif axis a little bit, and then it's growing some kind of flares, like some kind of like little roots coming out of the stems. And yeah, so that's very subtle, but it's already having like this carved in stone feel to it. And then next on the axis, we are arriving in the center, where both extremes are equally mixed with each other. So we call it Arizona Mix. Arizona Mix is basically a typeface with chunky bony serifs, and it makes it especially good to read in small sizes, but it also has like a punchy feel to it. And then we are almost at the end of the serif axis, which is still a little bit more chunky from the mix. So it's actually very well for reading text. So because the contrasts are not as high as in the serif one that comes next. And yeah, so we call it Arizona Text for that reason. And yeah, on the other side, you have like this almost display typeface because it has such high contrast and so sharp. Yeah, one challenge of Arizona typeface was the necessity to, yes, on a technical level, we have to make them compatible, but also on a visual level. So in a way, they had to like communicate with each other. They had to be interpolated, they had to have the same amount of points, but also visually they needed to somehow make an distinction between each other, but also having like this family feel to it. Yeah, you can see the stop motion of the transition of the AA. You can see how the contrast is like going up and down. Yeah, and so this is the full range of ABC Arizona. It's including these 5 subfamilies: sans, flare, mix, text, and serif. And each subfamily comes in 5 weights and italics. So it makes a total of 50 different styles. And yeah, and one beautiful aspect that we decided to follow is that every style of Arizona can be implemented within one single font file. So one single font file contains like all of these 50 different individual styles in it, and more if you calculate the in-betweens, of course. So yeah, here's a making of a little bit where Johannes and I are figuring out this synergy of some letters with Dan, and also the digital proofing sessions on the side. So after Arizona was finished, it was not really finished, because in a lot of times there are like custom requests for Arizona or other typefaces, of course. And one that I really want to show, because it came out so beautiful, is the one we did with This Is Collins for the San Francisco Symphony. Because it has like this, so we created a very small version of Arizona and a very tall one. And they managed to program it so beautiful that it kind of reacts to music and doing these sinus waves. And yeah, it was just like very well executed. And it's maybe one of the best examples where like type and music come together, in my opinion. And also Robert Janes, who's working with Dynamo, he created this awesome tool for them, so they could design their posters more easily. He created like an InDesign plugin for them, which like accesses these different styles of Arizona, of this Arizona, custom Arizona, and makes them into like these waves that you can like select. And also another thing that I want to show, because it's just beautiful to show, that Arizona was also used for the Glyphs app, actually, for their website, which is also a sponsor of this festival. And yeah, so it just feels like it was going the whole circle in a way. Yeah, you can check out Arizona on the Dynamo website, of course. So while doing work for Dynamo typefaces, from time to time you have like this idea, so you see some stuff that you find interesting in type design, and then you put it away, and then at one point you think, hey, that could be also a cool typeface. And these are this uncommissioned work where you think like, yeah, I really need to do something else as well. So I did 2 really big ones of those. One of them is Face, which is quite old now, so I'm gonna skip it for now. And Edition typeface, which is the more recent one, which was also used for this design festival, corporate design. You can have it on the back of the t-shirts. It's also displayed. And yeah, I will talk a little bit more about this one. It's called Edition typeface, and I will show you why in a second. Edition typeface is basically a family of one-line fonts, and it is a typeface system without any particular defined thickness, contrast, or any other typographic features in that sense of a tool that is replicating it. The letter forms are determined by the shape of a single line, and the way the line follows in each singular edition forms the type. These kind of typefaces are actually nothing new in particular, of course. They were always used as alternates for existing typefaces for various CNC tools. So the people who did them were actually mathematicians, programmers, or just like craftsmen who were just like recreating typefaces and for their machines. And I will explain a little bit more later about the research and development of edition typefaces. Sorry, I will do that now. That's what I mean. The idea behind editions is based on an idea of something Donald Knuth, a mathematician, and you could say pioneer of type design, said. And I will translate this idea in my own words. And it's something like, the idea is the letter, and the letter is not an image, but somehow information on a meta layer. So in a way, I think what he's referring for me is like that the letter is actually a bunch of coordinates. It's a typical mathematician thing. instead of like a stroke of a brush. So the letter itself is actually only an idea. And it's also tempting to say that the state of the alphabet and how we communicate is also like we are on the peak of it, and everything we do is universal and is valid and for a long time, or at least maybe forever. However, the alphabet has always changed, but very subtle, and it was always through the rise of new technologies and techniques. So the way of writing letters was always changing with it. Okay. Yeah. So different tools of writing bring different formal aspects to the written character. So for example, the letter of the typewriter machine did not look like this because the designer wanted it to look like this. It was like because there were a limited amount of space on the thing the machine could write, and there was also like the letters were very small, so you could not have like fine lines. So it was most of the time like a monolinear font almost. So, however, each instrument of writing is bound to the idea of the letter in some way. The thing that is changing is the flesh around it. So this and the form of the letter that is so created define different styles of type classifications. And we use type classifications to narrow down description of a typeface. Like here, it's a sans-serif, constructed or geometrical typeface. And then we have serif typefaces, or text typeface, or antiqua, or Renaissance antiqua, and whatsoever. Do you have scriptural, decorative? You can also say it's beautiful typeface, it's handwritten. Then there's like this digital monospaced feeling, constructed, pixely, or it's decorative and playful. And edition is based around the idea of creating the idea of the letter itself, which is the coordinates of the skeleton of the letter. So I designed letters via singular lines. The flesh, however, is completely left out and is meant to be applied later via the tool that reproduces it, like a pen or an engraving machine. Before I show the possibilities of a typeface like this enables, I want to go a little bit more into detail of the single styles that have been created into this family. And the skeleton of each edition recites a historical type reference in a way. So the first one I want to talk about is Scriptural Edition, which derives from scriptural writing that was very popular in Western society around the 18th, 19th century. This is the only edition that has like the scriptural feel to it. So the letters needed to be somehow connected. So it has like, it's still like this handwritten thing, but it's actually, the construction is very geometrical in itself. Yeah, to loosen this up a little bit, I disconnected some of the uppercase letters from the rest of the typeface. And yeah, here it's drawing an image with words. The next one I want to talk about is the Contextual Edition, which form derives heavily from those of the letterpress era. And this is meant to have the aesthetics of a typical text font in its way. An interesting aspect about this edition is that I was testing it out with a CNC tool, a pen plotter, and it took forever to like draw like these little lines of like every little serif in a singular line. So I decided to just connect all the serifs within one line so it can like reproduce quicker with the CNC tool. And so yeah, this is what makes this typeface a little bit more special in that sense. And yeah, I also find it interesting in my research about it that the serif typeface itself, it was meant to be very beautiful. You know, like it's like this notion of a serif typeface being like monumental and it's carved in stone. And then when book printing like became a thing, it was a very expensive craft in itself. So they wanted just to use the most beautiful ones. So since book printing, we always read serif typefaces. And this is like this thing of like, okay, we are used to this one, so this is the best typeface for text. So I wonder, like, it's just, you know, like an idea. If this comes, that the notion of a text typeface, it has to be serif, comes from this. So the next one is Numerical Edition. It's a monospace typeface that is stylistically quotes early computer typefaces, which specially developed to be displayed on CRT displays. But also the forms of the OCR fonts of the early 70s. These were optical character recognition fonts, which means that the machine could read it as well as the human. So, however, these screen resolutions became so good after a while that this style wasn't actually necessary anymore. Interesting enough, it's still around today as a type classification itself, and the kind of style that everyone recognizes in its way, because it like still has this notion of being a computer typeface. And another feature that stayed from this time is that it's monospaced. So to say, every letter takes on the same amount of horizontal space. And also this kind of thing is like still used in typesetting for computer terminals, programming, or number tables or something like this. And it's also like based back to this technology of a typewriter, actually. Yeah, you have some text with it. And yeah, this one is the more crazy one. Asymmetrical edition pays tribute to the experimental and decorative and definitely quirky side of type design. And it's inspired by this type, which was made in 1886 by Henry Schünemann, called Mikado. So yeah, here you can see another like picture with letters. You can see like this type is not meant to be read in that sense. It's really like drawing in a way, a feeling. And then the fifth one and the last one of these available editions right now is the geometrical edition, and its form is heavily inspired from the early 20th century, like Paul Renner's Futuro, Universal by Herbert Bayer. So, square, circle, triangle, obviously Bauhaus. And yeah, and then you can like test and access trial versions of edition typefaces on this extra mini site that I built. Here you can like scroll through, get some information. Oh wait, okay. You can also like test it here on this overlay type tester, and then you can change. Yeah, you know, yeah, exactly. Okay, and now this is where the true heart of this typeface system actually lies. It's the single line font edition of this typeface. And the single line font version of this typeface, I will just show and present here. I will also explain how to use the single line version of the edition typeface. So usually open line fonts can only be read by CNC programs. This is why they are always executed by mathematicians and less by type designers. Because it's very inconvenient for the designer like you and I are. Most design programs can only display fonts that have a black in them. So that only like have closed shapes and produce blackness. A typeface without any closed shapes consisting only of a line cannot be displayed, because the line itself is no form, but only coordinates. So the lines needed to be closed at the end. So that's the only way I could export the font on the software, and also the only way it can be displayed on, let's say, Adobe Illustrator. So we applied a workaround to use this open type font in Adobe Illustrator. So first you could, this script is also, you can also download it on the website. So you design the layout with the open path version of the font, which also looks kind of cool. Then you convert it to outlines in Illustrator. I think it's Command O. And then you run the script open paths. And what it does is like, it deletes the closing path of the typeface. And then you have like paths, the typeface in paths, and then you can apply any different brush to the font or use it for CNC, whatsoever. From here, the possibilities are really endless. So exactly. You can like start like putting images on this path. That's the first one I created. And what I want to show is, because really cool, because Actual Source, I'm sure a lot of you know it, they had like just released their new type design issue, Shoplifters, and they actually did like a big feature about edition typeface. And what they actually did is they engraved, here this is really engraved, you can see it, but the right one is really engraved in stone as like the covers of the sections. And then they experimented with Illustrator brushes as well. So it's like, and here I think it's metal, something like this. But they really did a good job, like just to exploring the possibilities of this type. Yeah, here in this Styropor, I don't know the name of its packaging material, this white one. It's also really nice. Yeah, and wood. Yeah, that's a book. If you're interested, I think you should get it. So now I come to the last section of my talk. How much time do we have?
15 minutes.
Okay, perfect. And I want to introduce the studio practice that I'm running together with Elias Liccini. And we have two pillars of our main work that we do together, and it's type design and graphic design, which are not so like disconnected to each other. And I will show like quickly a commission project, which is very like, it's compared to the other things that I just showed, it's very like rooted and it's very solid graphic design actually. So we were commissioned to develop the new theater book series for Stockholm Theater. And we needed to step in huge footprints because like this Willy Fleckhaus design from the 60s was very legendary. It creates like this Stockholm rainbow in a way. So we wanted to like take over this idea of like color. So we created like 3 different like colors for each book. Really tried to like introduce this simplicity of color and typography that Willy Fleckhaus also introduced in his book series. Yeah, so we painted every side in a different way. So you have already like this rainbow, colorful feel to it, without having to rely on the whole book series to complete it. Yeah, for this project, we actually also used Arizona typeface from the beginning. It just felt natural as the authors of the plays are very individual and have very individual styles. So we tried to like really implement this into the whole typesetting system. And yeah, this is a project that I definitely worth mentioning here in this presentation, as it is somewhat of a crossover between type design and product design. In 2020, we got approached by our good friend and former graphic design colleague Migle, who is now doing jewelry design and also producing her own jewelry brand. And the idea behind this collaboration was to create these letter chains. It's like, you know, they have like these chains, and then you have like the name of someone you like, or love or whatever. You can just like think of your own words. So we thought it would be kind of interesting to create a typeface that is the actual letter chain itself, and then forming a seamless connection between the chain and the actual letter. So it's an interesting way of working, because we needed to like first decide on a chain before we can actually think about the letters, because the size of the chain, it really defines like how you can build the letter itself. And yeah, so after we decided on a chain, we then rebuilt this like chain link in 3D. And then we used it as a modular tool to actually like construct the typeface, like all the little links put into each other, and then like creating a typeface with lowercase characters to it. So the idea and the form of the chain, it actually decided everything that these letters like have to look like. And yeah, after that, we sent it over to our friend Kipras, who made then 3D renderings out of it. So it could be 3D printed or molded. I don't know like which kind of like process she's using. Then with silver. And yeah, and then they were really produced, and then like the connection between them should like somehow be in a way fluent. So it's like really like the chain like forming these letters. And then yeah, also Marie Dominguez is a really like talented 3D artist. She made like these 3D renderings of the chain born by statues. Yeah. And yeah, you can decide on what kind of like jewelry you want, like a necklace, a bracelet, or an earring. And so yeah, there were like 3 different models who are wearing those. And yeah, and then you see this chain worn by its first users in a way. And yeah, as this project is an intersection of type design and product design, we wanted really to strengthen this bond even more. So implemented a type tester that lets you customize your own chain. And then you are able to order it as a custom and individual piece. So a type tester is normally a tool where like on a Foundry website, you can like test out typefaces. Even before the step, you actually would get some trial versions and put them into your design. So yeah, we thought it would be funny to do it like this, and you'll be able to really type your piece that you wanted to get. Okay, another quick thing, because like you have like all these weird like long print products here. This some kind of like, it became like one thing because we wanted really to produce like business cards for our studios as well. So we decided to just place them on some printing sheets of shops that we are actually doing. And yeah, we had like this kind of space, this long space. And then the printer asked us, should I cut them, or where do I have to cut them? And we just said, okay, maybe just leave it like this. And now we have like this ultra long business cards, which are very inconvenient to go around with. But yeah, but this became a thing now, and we actually produced more now, because always with covers and stuff like this, you always have some space left on the print sheet, and it's just waste money. So you get like free business cards, basically. And then yeah, now we produce a ruler, which is a very practical one. And then the other one is like a time zone table. So yeah, we're thinking really about new ideas that we can implement in this long thing idea. So if you have any ideas, it would be nice. So yeah, I will talk now about the graphic design practice, and we already had a small detour to some type design. What? Okay. Can I stretch a little bit? You know, these 2 things are very entangled with each other. Okay, then I will go really quickly, because I want to show 2 of those typefaces. One of them is time zone, which is a very recent one, and it comes in 2 styles. It's a 2 styles only type family, so it's a very small one compared to all the others that I just showed. And it's a low contrast serif typeface. Aesthetically, it's inspired by early digital typeface fonts, as well as fonts from the photo typesetting era, and it's made for small sizes, but it also provides strong characteristics that makes it very suitable for headlines, big text, or digital applications. And it also comes in an italic, and also includes small caps. I show this because I really want to like, it's not always just experiments and like new stuff. Sometimes it's also just like, it's also nice to just settle down and do something normal in a way. And then, yeah, time zone has like these small rounded edges, as you can see. And we had this idea when looking at this article from 1979, where Gerhard Unger was talking about light traps and ink traps. So in print, you have ink traps, which like go in, like the white space goes in, and then the ink can run into it. But in digital space, you have light traps, because the form of the letter is drawn by light instead of like black, as it is in printing. And so yeah, you have this rounded, like almost like soft edges. Yeah, this is one special feature that is very subtle, but we really like this feel of these typefaces. Here you can see another printed typeface. Then, yeah, we introduced some different horizontals into the font, so it gets like a nice jumpy feel to it as well. And it comes in a regular and an italic. Sorry, I have 15 slides left. Okay, the second one I show is Halkoland. It's a representative of the Scotch genre. And we found this super fresh print product. And it's made in 1893 on occasion of the World Fair in Chicago. And these were the only letters that we had to work with. But we wanted really to revive it in a way and like reinterpret it and modernize it. Because as it is here, you can just take it. But it was not digitalized or anything. So we thought like, okay, we just like take some of these features and do a new typeface out of it. But we always reference like these revivals that we do because it's very important to know where it comes from. But what they didn't include was an italic, where we like introduced some of these like italic moves that italic typefaces have, but they're still having this geometrical feel to it. And what struck us so beautiful is that it is a Scotch typeface, but it also has like this Bodoni kind of thing to it. So it's like a mix of nice genres into one. And yeah, you can see, just like, it's geometrical, italic, okay. Yeah, and you can check out our typefaces on, you have the link on the thing here. Okay, last one, very quickly, because it's a flashy one. We do other typefaces and we want to show it to you for the first time. Its working title is Hull Twins. And we were looking at these specimens from the 70s. So much great stuff comes from there. And we thought it's nice that there is like this weird shift in weight because it was character recognition. And so the computer needed to read some of these parts, you know. And we thought, okay, how can we bring this into the new era of variable fonts? So we thought that it's nice to have like two different shifts. So you have one shift in this direction and one shift in the other one. And if you combine them, it's becoming a black one. So it's like two different ways to go to a black. And yeah, it's a very rhythmical typeface. And we would say in its animated way, it's almost as rhythmical as in its static version. And yeah, it comes in 4 different styles. That was I said. It's a thin, and then 2 different weight shifts and a bold. Okay, I just quickly, some dance thing going on here. Yeah, it's about taking ideas from the old and bringing them into something else in a way. That's very often our approach. Yeah, so thank you very much for your attention.
Thank you so much, Elias. That was super exciting. Q&A time. Does anyone from the audience want to be today's first question? Oh, Ross, thank you.
Hi, really nice talk. What does your working week look like?
My working week, it's very, I think a lot of you know this, but I mean, you know it because you also experience it. The work we do is like, always comes like, where you have no really like boundaries of when you stop working, because like working is so entangled again with your life or with our life that it's very hard to differentiate what is working and what is not. When I was walking around here with Lucas, we were talking all the time about workshops and type. So it's very hard to differentiate it in a way. But really to work, it depends really on the situation. It's like sometimes you have like these calm times, which is super nice being self-deployed, but also it's like super busy sometimes. So I think you really cannot like say this is how it goes. But basically, as it's really it's really like part of our lives, we really like to identify ourselves with it, and I think that's a good thing. But it also means that you actually never stop somehow working in a way.
I have a question, if no one else right now. So I think you also talked about like historically the tools we use have always influenced the work we do as designers. But I think we still often look at the softwares and the design programs as like more of a means to the end in order to get our work done in the most convenient way. But I see that for you, it often becomes the source of inspiration for the work you do, rather than just a means to the end. Either you flip a function upside down and use it in a way that it wasn't meant for, or you really push to the edge and challenge what you can do with the technology and with the software. So with that approach, what kind of influence do you think that has on the end result of your work?
Yeah, it's very nice that you see it that way, because of course that's something I try, like taking a tool and then trying to use it in a different way. That's what I learned from some people who really inspired me. But yeah, but I don't think it's always working like this. I don't know, like sometimes maybe it like comes out really good, and sometimes maybe I have the feeling no one sees it, but then it's also fine. So yeah, but I think that everyone who's using some tools is influenced by them, even if they are not liking it in a way. I think if you use Illustrator or something else, I think it would change the way up how you approach things. That's what I think, at least. So sometimes it's really nice to like change up your tools. And I always wanted to do a book in Word and Microsoft Word, but that is, I think it's not so much fun as it sounds. Maybe not. Maybe not, yeah.
I think we also have some questions from the online audience. So Jonathan is asking, how do you feel about the viewpoint that variable fonts offload important design choices to the user of the type as opposed to the type designer?
Yeah, that's a good question, especially for real, like, unexperimented typefaces. The user has now the chance to, because usually a type designer says, okay, this is a regular and you should use it as a regular. But with a variable typeface, the user can like use whatever they want as a regular, and then there's like text and display, and sometimes the user uses a display for a text font. But I mean, in the end, it's like the same thing as the first introduction of the computer. I have the feeling like everyone was doing anything, and everything looked like, and the printers back then were like, oh no, what's going on? It's a little bit like what Nate showed yesterday. It's like everyone can like print posters and stuff like this, but in a way, I don't see that's a problem. It's just like you do what you do with the visual needs that you have. And yeah.
And maybe people will also grow with the responsibility over time.
Yeah, and I think it's also okay if you use a display typeface as a text typeface. I think we talked about this yesterday, so I have the feeling this will only repeat itself in a way now. But yeah, thanks for the question. It's a good one.
Anyone else from the audience?
Is there a...
Let's do the mic, just because then the online people can also hear you.
In Arizona, is there a point that is not covered? Like when you're using all the sliders between like thin and bold and serif and sans, is there like a combination that is just like not working? Because I know like if you go from, there's like a certain thing that you're just like, oh, if you do this and this and a little bit of this, it looks terrible. Or is it like all?
No, I wouldn't say it's all perfect, but for example, if you would like implement like one point on the italic axis, then everything in Arizona would of course be a little bit shifted, It's like, and then I would say, okay, that's not how it's meant to be, but that's the way the tool works, and you have to bear a font file, so you could do whatever you want. So that's that shows you how it is. So yeah, what's also nice about variable fonts that you can actually extrapolate, and that's where things get really crazy, because you can like extrapolate from the point where the actual extreme is. So you can actually say, okay, I want to go like the axis way up or way down, and then something crazy happening, then like some explosions, because the computer doesn't know what to do. Well, yeah, that's also something you could do.
Thank you.
Anyone else? Yes.
Since you're already working with parametric design and you're touching on the generative and coding side of things, have you, because like when I look at the font, I see, like a few points that are being moved. Did you ever try to work with, let's say, 100 times more points to make it even more like that you could control each like segment or section, like you could segment the typefaces more? Did you ever think about like working with it in different ways rather than just, like even weirder than the things that you do now?
Yeah, I mean, yeah, that's a good question. These things are really like, I think you can use that for, you mean like a typeface that has like much more points where a lot more of stuff is happening at the same time?
Like for instance, the T that you have there, like if I wanted to like make a sine wave in the middle.
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
just more points.
That's actually something that you see a lot, that we did a lot in the beginning. Like it's this experimenting, like, oh, okay, how much like crazy can a form get? Like, can you like implement an explosion into one letter? And yes, of course, we tried that, especially in the beginning when everything was new. So, and it's funny because when we do workshops, that's also what the students try. And then they have like 200 points doing something. And then they forget 1 point or one Bézier, and suddenly the whole thing breaks because you can't export it anymore. Then you have like to figure out which point was it. So we really like to try to like keep it simple, but effectful in a way. And I think with type, you can really do it because the essence is, like in the letter. In a way, I think.
Cool, thanks.
Anyone else? Okay, then I have a question. Because now you've been showing a lot of nice examples of like problem solving or like either combining graphic design with a whole different discipline, product design, and like going between the analog world and the physical world, like cutting into different materials. And also variable fonts is this fairly new technology and everything was crazy and everything is possible, but also now people are getting to know it more and more. I wanted to ask, like, if there has been some situations where you've actually hit a point where, like, you hit a limit of the technology, and it might be because the technology is still evolving, or something that has just gone wrong, some experiment.
Yeah, it's funny that you say it because I had this typeface phase. I don't know if maybe someone of you has seen it, but there was really like, it was really in the beginning of variable fonts, and there I reached my limits because it was really like but it was more technical limits that I can't really explore, export it, even the typeface. So I had like these technical issues, and I needed to like write with the program of Glib and the founders, and then they updated something. But some things never really were fixed in a way because it doesn't really make sense from a technical perspective how you would draw a font. But this font was really like doing like some weird intersection between Béziers and curves, and this was nothing the computer could have like exported in this way that it was possible on a technical level. So I was really restricted in that kind of level with this typeface. And yeah, this was one experience very early on. That, and also like after doing all the every time like variable fonts, it's also really nice to like for one time not do it. It's really refreshing to just go back to basic type design from time to time. This is why I also showed these two like type designs that are not even variable in any way.
How are we on time? Okay, then let's take a little break. Yeah, 10 minutes. 10 minutes. So you can, take a little walk, look at the posters from the students, and then we move on with Matilda Tjäder.